I suspect that it is entirely normal to have a moment during any large project where you go, why am I doing this? I am so tired. This is exhausting. Maybe I just don't do this. I suspect that that moment of, can I even handle this? This is too much. I'm not making progress, so on and so on and so on, is a common checkpoint in the process of making something. And the bigger the project is, I think the more likely this is to pop up. If you're a solo game developer and you're working on sound, art, music, code, and marketing and everything, I think it makes perfect sense for this to pop up because at some point, you're going to be overwhelmed and it's going to feel like you're making no progress and you're going to reassess. You're going to be sick and tired of the project that you're working on. It happens. Now, will it happen in every single project? I think probably not. I think this is an optional side quest. This is a random encounter that sometimes you get, sometimes you don't, but maybe more often than not. Maybe the bigger the project is, the more likely it is that you run into this phenomenon of creative exhaustion. Now, you might think that I'm going to go through this episode and have specific strategies for conquering creative exhaustion, or I might be able to offer you a place to moan about it and say, oh, isn't it so hard? Isn't it so difficult? I'm not trying to do either of those things. What I'm trying to do here is just talk about that moment, that feeling of exhaustion, and relate it to games a little bit, and not try to get rid of it, nor try to complain about its existence, but just acknowledge it and go, yeah, this is a part of the thing, and I believe that it will pass, and maybe if it doesn't pass, then that's a different thing, or maybe if it's happening too often, then that's a different thing. I don't really know, but I just want to look at it honestly and say, hey, sometimes projects are exhausting, and that might be okay. It might even be good, probably not, but at the very least, I think it's okay to get completely exhausted while working on a massive project. As I always do, I'm going to start by relating this back to video games. Have there been games that have made you go, I'm so fed up with this, I'm done playing this game? Maybe you played League of Legends. That'll do it real quick. Maybe you played a little too much chess. Maybe a competitive video game will get you there if you're just failing to climb the ranks. Or a giant RPG that gives you the same fetch quest kind of thing over and over. Something that's just so repetitive with no real payoff. Something that is just exhausting. This same exact thing. When am I going to have some fun? Do I have to just keep grinding on this? Quick connection to development. I feel like this is why people don't like fleshing out the content of their game because it's not new and exciting every day. It's kind of the same thing for a very long period of time. But we'll get into that more later, I suppose. This thing of just like, oh, here is a repetitive, mundane activity. I'm exhausted. I'm sick of this. Or a boss that is too hard that you keep slamming your head against and getting wrecked by. And then eventually you go, you know what? I'm done. I'm sick of this game. I'm done. I'm not dealing with this. This is too much. This is a very real part of gaming and of designing a game so that players can actually enjoy it the whole way through. How many games have you beaten? How many games do you just stop playing at the 20-hour mark, the 40, the 50, the 60? How long is the game? When do you stop playing? There are so many games that I haven't beaten because they failed to keep my attention. Sometimes the sheer length of the game can make me stop playing it. And maybe it's not that I get exhausted with it. Maybe it's just that I look at it and I go, I'm just done. There's other things I can play. This isn't that interesting. tie into development again. Maybe you don't switch projects because you get exhausted. Excuse me, stuttering a little bit there. Maybe you don't switch projects because you get exhausted. Maybe you switch projects because you just see something a little more interesting. Also, very relatable, right? But like maybe these games aren't keeping your interest all the way through. Maybe you look at the size of a game and just thinking about the size of the game, you're like, that's exhausting. I'm not playing that game. There are RPGs, JRPGs that I would love to play. There's a whole list of them. And I look at that list and I go, I'm not setting aside 70 hours this year to play this game. I'm just not doing it. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing it. I just don't want to because there's too much of a chance that I'll get 20 hours in and then I'll have to stop playing the game and then I come back and I start playing it again and there's no good recap or anything. And I have to restart. I'm not going to restart. I have to figure out where I started from. I'm not going to do that. It's too much. There's so little payoff. There's this moment in the future that's going to be frustrating that I don't want to deal with, that I've run into before, right? There are these things in games that make us go, no, you know what? No, I'm done. And I think it's easy to let go of that part of the game unless it's really bad. Like, there are games that are really exhausting. There are games that, like, something about them will grab you and go, like, don't you hate this? Don't you just never want to interact with this again? And I'm having trouble thinking of those moments right now. In a Sonic game, I've not played this, but there's a Sonic game, a 3D Sonic game that has this fishing side quest. That is a mandatory part of the main game that is famously difficult for no good reason. You play as Big Cat and you're trying to catch like a frog. And there's clips of the Game Grumps playing this where they're just like, Aaron Hansen is just losing his mind trying to catch this freaking frog and screaming at it. And it's very relatable. It's just this frustrating moment in a game that is needlessly hard. And you're like, why is this like this? Why is this a barrier to the main plot of the game? There's a moment in Final Fantasy IX where you have to play a card tournament and it's a part of the main quest of the game. And it's like, this is a side quest and now suddenly it's the main quest. There's a thing in one of the Spider-Man games where there's just these little like stealth puzzle sections that aren't that enjoyable and are totally different from the rest of the game. I think some people like it, some people don't. I've not actually played it. That's just the feedback I've heard about it. And there are these moments where it's like, I was working on this thing and now you're making me focus on this other unrelated thing that I have no interest in that is not the reason why I started playing this game. And that can be so annoying. And so like, oh, why, dude? Why are you putting this in the game? This isn't what I'm here for. And then you're exhausted with the game. You go, I'm fed up with this. How many times are you going to do this to me? You know what? I'm out. I'm going to go do this other thing because I'm sick of being interrupted for this pointless chore that I don't want to do. This is a game. I'm supposed to be enjoying myself. Once again, relatable for the whole creating things thing. You know what? Let's go ahead and start talking about the development side of this. Just as games have that moment where you go, why are you including this gameplay feature? Why am I doing this puzzle? Why am I dealing with all this stuff that I don't want to interact with? Creative projects have that same moment. There are so many times when you just want to focus on making the cool thing, but you have to fix a bug. You just want to focus on making the cool thing, but you have to deal with some weird paperwork thing or some weird like store structure thing. You have to use somebody's API for something. There's just like some weird loop that you have to jump through that you didn't expect to jump through, and you just want to make a game, but the computer doesn't understand that when you tell this character to jump, you want it to just jump. You don't want, like, I don't know, the ground beneath you to move away from you, right? Like you have some physics bug or something is what I'm trying to convey here. Not my best analogy, but we're going to keep going. There are these moments where you just have all of these little side things that you didn't expect, that you don't want to deal with, that you just have to deal with, and that can be very, very tiring. And then there's just the sheer size of the thing, like we were talking about with JRPGs. There can be this moment where you look at the sheer size of the project and you go, I don't know, man, I don't know. But that one, I feel like part of that is just not looking at the size of the project. Like I know that's the weird advice that I give, but I feel like intentional ignorance is really handy with that, because when we're playing a JRPG, we're focused on what we're doing right now. We're not focused on the end of the thing. When I go on a hike, I'm not staring at the top of the mountain. I'm looking in front of me and I'm enjoying the hike. And then eventually I get to the top of the mountain. I go, oh, that's cool. I'm at the top of a mountain. How nice. You know? I say mountain. I'm on the East Coast. The mountains here are more like, they're not like mountains like they are on the West Coast. West Coast mountains are like huge and extremely steep and intimidating. East Coast mountains are like, hey, let's take a day trip and hike a mountain. You know, it's like nice. There's not like frost at the top of the mountains. You know, so it's pretty relative to West Coast mountains. They're less of a there's less preparation needed. What a tangent. Okay, the point I'm making here is you can exhaust yourself just by looking at the end of the journey too much. You can exhaust yourself just by hitting too many of these little bumps in the road. You can get exhausted by a lot of different things, but the thing that happens to me, at least, is these things exhaust me, and then I go, the project is doomed. How will I ever get to the end of this? My God, why am I doing this? Exhaustion, 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 right? And that's just like a trap. It's just like a little emotional trap. You fall into this moment where you go, oh, I'm certain that this is how this is, and I will never enjoy this project again. This is just exhausting. This is just a pain. There's nothing good about it. Why did I start doing this to begin with? Blah, 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 blah. It's just a trap. It's just a trick your mind is playing on you in the moment, and it's legitimate. It's a genuine feeling that you feel and you go through it, but I think it's really handy to have this little thing in the back of your head that just reminds you and goes, "Hey, this is temporary. This is exhaustion is temporary." That's the key feature that gets me. It does not feel temporary. When I am exhausted on a creative project, first off, it often does not just happen for a day. When I get exhausted on something, it is something that reappears over the course of a week or two, or a few weeks, maybe even a month. There are moments that I keep hitting in a project where I go, God almighty, why is this still like this, right? Because there's like a thing that you keep tackling it and then avoiding it, and tackling it and avoiding it. And you're going back and forth trying to figure out some specific thing, or running into the same sort of barrier for a while, or whatever it may be, and it keeps exhausting you until you eventually get through it or figure out a different angle on it, or whatever. So it can feel very permanent if it happens more than once because of one thing that you're stuck on. And I don't know exactly how to navigate this, because it's going to vary from project to project and so on and so on. But for me, a big part is I will bang my head against a wall repeatedly over and over and over. And one of the tricks is to not bang my head against the wall and to find a way around the wall. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I don't have the necessary knowledge to avoid the wall. But there you go. And sometimes it's just general exhaustion. Sometimes you're just freaking tired, man. You know? Sometimes you're just tired. You're like, I've been working on this for this long. It's not done yet. And it's just so much. It's just such a huge it's just so much stuff. And I'm tired. And I don't want to keep working on it. And I'm dead here. You know, I'm done. I'm all tired out. And you know what? That's all right. Take a break. Take a break. Step away. Do what you need to do. Put a note for when you're going to start back up. And then keep to that. And don't make it like some crazy, I'm going to start back up on this day and I'm going to fix everything and blah, 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 blah. Just go, oh, I'm going to take a look at it again on this day. That way, the project is still there and you're going to come back to it. The biggest thing is like you take a break and you never come back, right? That's a huge problem. That gets me all the time. As long as you have a way to come back and a time that you're going to come back and all of this stuff, then take a moment, step away, come back, see if you're good, step away, come back again, see if you're good. Like, it's fine to be exhausted. I said I wasn't going to have specific solutions, but here I am attempting to offer specific solutions. The fact is, I don't know if, well, one, I don't even know if you're experiencing creative exhaustion, but if you are, I don't know how to manage it for you. We're all different. I just want to share this thing because I feel like in a world of everything is, all you got to do is grind. All you got to do is this: wake up at 5 in the morning and do this thing, right? And then do this and that and the other, and then it's all going to be perfect and it's going to be great. All you got to do, just put in the work. Just do this and then you're great. Just do that and then you're great. It can be very overwhelming for somebody who goes, yeah, but I'm exhausted. And people are like, oh, I know you're exhausted. You just got to keep going. No, dude. Sometimes you're just exhausted and it's hard to even pinpoint why. You just look at it and you go, there's just so much going on, brother. Like, there's just so many things. And then somebody can't, like, really connect with that or give you specific solutions to this, that, or the other. But it's just a thing that happens sometimes. You just got too much on your plate and you're tired. And that's okay. It's fine. It happens. If you're creating a solo game, it's going to happen a lot. If you're writing a novel, it's going to happen a lot. Any massive creative project, one of the hardest things to learn is to just stick to a project. And you can't do it by just going, I'm going to just stick to this project. That's like more tiring somehow. If you just say, I'm going to stick to this project, I'm going to finish it no matter what, that freaking sucks, dude. I don't know how exactly to express this, but whenever I go, I am definitely 100% finishing this project, and that's like my starting point. My starting point is I am determined this is the project that I am going to finish, and that is the key motivation behind everything that I'm doing. That's terrible. Now, if I get passionate about a project and then I start saying, oh no, I'm definitely going to finish this. This is a project that I want to finish. I'm excited about this project. I want to get there with it. I'm excited. Let's move forward. I'm committed to this project. That's different. It's like getting to know the project and deciding that you're committed to it is very different from day one saying, I have to finish a project, so I'm committing to this. That's like marrying somebody on a first date versus like getting to know somebody over the course of months and years. You know what I'm saying? I can't think of a better analogy for that. I'm sure there is one. I hate to use romantic analogies because they're weird. But like that is kind of how this is. Like if you're having this feeling of I have to commit to a project and finish it, it's like maybe, but you got to get to know the project and see if it's a project that you want to commit to. And any time that I've had a project where I just go, I have to finish a project, I'm 100% committed to finishing this project. And it's a large scale project, like it's like over the course of years, like 6 months to 2 years or something. Then I'm like, I'm probably not going to stick to that project, man. I'm probably not going to do it. It's probably not happening. I think that method can work great as a side tangent for like, I'm going to do this project that only lasts for 2 weeks or like maybe a month or something, because then it's like, I'm going to explore this thing and learn about it. That makes a lot of sense to me. But also, this is all just me. This is like my angle and my feelings about it while I am, by the way, in the middle of being exhausted. The reason I'm doing this episode is because I couldn't come up with any other topic because I'm so friggin' tired. I'm so exhausted from all the things that I've been aiming for and looking at the journey forward and going, wow, this is going to take a long time. And so then this was the only topic I could come up with, which is why we're talking about it today. It's also why there's not going to be any show notes today, because I don't want to do them. So I'm just not doing them, which I hope is setting an example of like, yeah, I'm still working on this thing that I love doing, but I'm cutting myself some slack. Because sometimes you gotta, sometimes you gotta just kind of give it half. Sometimes half is everything you have. And I cut out like a 10% effort thing, and that makes it easier for me to put out this episode today. I was like, okay, there's just no notes on this episode. And now I can do the episode because I just don't want to do the notes. Somehow the notes are just a little too much for me this week. So there you go. The YouTube shorts, those might not come out this week either. I don't know. We'll see. I got to focus on the things that really matter this week. And the things that really matter this week are taking care of my long-term sustainable progress in game development, right? My long-term sustainable ability to learn to make games and to make cool things and to build a community and all of this stuff. That's what really matters. And my own sanity with creation, my own love of creating things. And so if that means that I sacrifice some show notes or I don't make some YouTube shorts, if that means that I don't make as much progress this week as I normally would, that's completely fine. I've only got one question for you this week. How do you manage your creative exhaustion? If you have a day where you are like, I don't want to work on this stuff. I'm done. I'm tapped out. I can't do this. What do you do? Do you focus on it? Do you look at it? Do you try to force yourself to work? Do you go outside? Do you go for a hike? Do you go for a run? What's the move? Maybe you go cook. Maybe you do some other creative thing. Like maybe instead of doing all of this music stuff or art stuff or game dev stuff or whatever it is that you're focusing on that's burning you out, you go, you know what? I'm going to go crochet something. Or I'm going to go read a book that I love. Or I'm just going to go write poetry, whatever it may be, something else that's creative, but doesn't have any weight on it to just remind yourself of how much you love making things. What's the angle? What's the move? For me, it's usually physical exercise, or just getting outside, getting in nature. I've talked about this before, but nature's huge for me. Spending time in nature is the most important thing in my life. If I could, I would just live in a cabin out in the woods. I would just live in a cabin out in the woods, making games or writing or playing a ukulele or something. I would not interact with society at all. I would just be there, just sweaty cabin man, long hair, bald head, looking like a weird, just a wilderness guy with a monk haircut. You know what I mean? The top of my head is totally bald, but then I have long hair, and it's all messy and I'm just chilling in my log cabin, smelling horrific and playing the ukulele and writing weird poetry that nobody will ever read. Maybe not poetry, probably fiction. Maybe there'd be see, the thing is, I would end up designing a game or something, and then I'd be like, God, now I need electricity, and I really want to play this game, and I'm just sitting in a cabin, and I want to play video games. That's where it falls apart for me, is that I can't engage with games. But yeah, nature. I've gone on a tangent again. Nature's a big one for me. That is the ultimate recovery tool for any kind of burnout. I freaking love nature. I'll just go out and I'll just sit. No headphones, no nothing. Just sound of a pond nearby or some trees, wind blowing through the trees. Oof, that's good. Just near silence, but there's a little bit of wind noise and some bugs maybe, or crazy loud cicadas. That's good stuff. Anyway, I'm rambling now about nature, but that is my episode about just creative exhaustion. And I hope that it is in some way relatable or useful or something, because I feel like there's some juice in there that's interesting stuff, and I don't know, maybe not. That's that for the week. We've got the Discord if you want to join. We've got the Twitch channel, Anxious Buddha Games on Twitch, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. 3 hours of game dev, 2 hours of gaming. You know the drill. You can reach out. I've got the email too, but if you want to join the community and chat with people and all that stuff, the Discord is really the best place to go. The Twitch is also pretty good. That is everything for the week. Thanks for tuning in. I'll have another one for you next week. Until then, get out there, make some stuff, and have fun with it. Bye-bye.